So my name is Danielle Kirkus, and I am the Marketing Mechanics Committee Chair. So before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank our annual sponsors for SMPS, and we couldn't do this without them, so definitely wanted to thank them. I've got just a few reminders before we get started. So, we are still asking if you have a minute to please take a screenshot or a photo, of yourself with your computer screen, wherever you are, to share with us for the newsletter so we can get some photos of the event since we can't all be together in person. Please do keep yourself muted while Erika is speaking. But at the end, we're happy to take questions. If you think of something that you'd like to ask while she's presenting, please use the chat box to type that in and we'll get to you as soon as we can. But like I said, at the end, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question yourself, that's more than okay. We are planning to record today's session and we will have a post-event survey like usual that will get sent out after the event. So we're just asking, like usual, if you could get back to us with your survey results within the next week. Here in just a minute, I'm going to hand this over to Erika Booker, who is our speaker today, and she is the Division Marketing Director with HNTB Corporation. And Erika, to thank you for your time today, we are planning to make a donation to the charity of your choice. Like I said, please enter any questions that you have into the chat box. We'll make that donation to thank you for your time. And sorry, try not to take up too much time. So I know I'm going through this quickly, but before I hand it over to Erika, I did want to go over a few reminders about upcoming events. So every month we do have our coffee talk on the third Thursday. We are accepting a call for nominations for the next board year. So if that's something that you're interested in, or if you know someone who might be interested, please let us know. And we've got an upcoming fundraiser for the Second Harvest Food Bank on the 15th. And the next marketing mechanics / professional development event in April is going to be on marketing at low tide. And then in May, we've got a program about mastering virtual interviews. So if you haven't yet signed up for those, please do so that you can attend those great sessions as well. All right, Erika, unless I'm forgetting anything, I think I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so can everyone see the actual presentation and not the speaker notes? All right. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna be looking off to the side. All I'm looking at will be the slides. So there isn't anyone here giving me crib notes or anything like that, just so you know. First, I just want to say thank you, SMPS Central Florida, for the opportunity to share my thoughts on this topic. I would really like for this to be fun, so I have just a few slides to get through, some major points that I want to share with you, and then I would love to hear your thoughts, and if you have any questions, would love to talk through some possible solutions. As you'll see in my presentation, building a network and having people that you can run ideas through is going to be vitally important regarding getting what you want, asking for what you want, and getting what you want. A little bit about me and how I've moved throughout the AEC industry. I started at Lockheed Martin as a senior editor, and from there I was referred to an opening at PBS&J, which is now Atkins. And I went there as a proposal coordinator, where I learned quite a bit about proposal coordination. It was fast and furious, worked across many different disciplines. And from there, I was actually referred by my former boss at Atkins. They had a reorganization, and she was contacted by a recruiter. And so she wasn't interested in the position. And so she referred me to the position, and that's how I ended up at Tetra Tech. And from there, I joined SMPS. and interacted quite a bit with Carrie Namiro, who was and is a good friend and also served as a mentor. Even though I was her boss, she mentored me in a lot of ways. And there's another lady who's on this call right now, Tanya Goring. She's an HR at Tetra Tech. She also served as a mentor. So I'm going to get into a little bit more about what that means in a little bit. But from there, I was contacted by a recruiter at HNTB, and I wasn't going to respond to the recruiter at all. And one day I was motivated to do so. And so I heard about what was going on at HNTB, and that's when I decided to make the move. So now I'm at HNTB. And as I go through my presentation today, I'm going to talk about some instances where I employed what I'm sharing with you in order to get what I want. All right. Bear with me, please. There we go. All right. So communicating with your manager, it's really important. One of the things that another mentor colleague shared with me, and it stuck with me very early on in my career, is we can't depend on anyone else to decide what our future is going to be, right? We need to understand what we want, why we want it. And so rather than sit and wait for somebody to give us what we want or to know what we want, we've got to get comfortable with communicating and communicating about some things that aren't necessarily comfortable to talk about. So my message here is don't leave it up to someone else to decide or define your future. I learned that, wish I'd learned it a little bit earlier, but at any rate, I finally learned it and I took that to heart. So there are three things when communicating with your manager. You need to uncover what's important. That's uncovering what's important to you and uncovering what's important to them. That's where you're going to find the alignment in order to get what you want. And I'll discuss that a little bit further. The third thing is identifying your champions. Having mentors and advocates throughout your career is incredibly important. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about what that looks like and who those individuals might be. And then the third thing is practicing patience. That is something that I still work on. That's why it's called practice. But it's important to understand that you're not always going to get what you want when you want it, but you have to continue toward that goal. And ultimately, you'll find either that goal changes or you get what you want and you can move on to the next goal. So let's talk about uncovering what's important. What I didn't know early on in my career is that it's not just about what I want, it's important to understand why I want it. When you go to communicate with your leadership, if you're not clear on why you want something, it's going to be really hard to champion for that thing, right? Also understanding how what you want is going to affect your professional and your personal goals is really important. I have found in my career that I have fought for things, not understanding what it was exactly. And when I got it, I wanted to throw it back. So you don't want to catch the hot potato only to find out you really weren't that hungry because you weren't willing to get burned. So understand what you want and why you want it. Take that time. If you don't have the answer, that's fine. Walk away from it. Talk to people. Talk to your friends. Do some research on what it is you want. What's entailed in that? If it's a new job, if it's a new position, if you want more money, do your research. If you want to go to your leadership or your boss and ask for more money, do the research. There are tons of resources in the industry to help you understand what your position is paying or what the position you want is paying. Also ask if you think you're being underpaid, ask your HR group for a salary review. That's actually not an inappropriate question. Now, will all of them give it to you? No. But ask the question. It doesn't hurt to ask the question. If they don't give it to you, like I said, Google is your friend. There are tons of reputable resources out there that can help you at least get into a ballpark of what you can expect in a particular role in the region where you live.
Hey, Erika, excuse me, your slides are not advancing.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to change the way I'm sharing.
Yeah, I think you might just need to go in presentation mode. It's currently not. There you go.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so that was the first slide. This was the second one that I was talking from, where I talked about uncover what is important, identifying your champions, and practicing patience. Okay, and here's where we are. So I talked about number one, identify what is important to you and why. The next thing that I found is really important is asking questions and doing some discovery around what's important to your leadership. Oftentimes, we think about what we want and we go ask for it without any concept of what's important to our manager or our leadership. Where I have found success is in asking those questions, uncovering what's important to them, and then finding, number three, finding where those things align, right? So for example, if the current manager that I have, he doesn't like for me to call him my boss, my current manager, when I interviewed with him, I asked him what was important to him, and he said, keep me out of trouble. And I kind of laughed. I thought, oh, okay, that's cute. He was like, no, really, keep me out of trouble. So what I understand is that I have to make sure that he is aware of what's going on, when it's going on, and we've built a level of trust that he knows he can rely on me to keep him informed about different things. What I also know is important to him is the growth of our team and making sure that our team has the resources they need to adequately support our division. So knowing that that's what's important to him, I know that he is a champion for all kinds of professional growth when it comes to our team. So that's where I start from when I have a conversation about, hey, will you pay X amount of money for this training, or will you pay for this additional resource? So understanding what's important, sometimes for your leadership, they want to look good. So if that's what it is, find a way to position what you want as a way to make them look good. You have to find the win-win situation, and that's where you're likely to find more success in getting what you want. Champions. Boy, oh boy, do I wish I'd known this earlier in my career. Another way to get what you want is having someone who will advocate for you and having mentors. Now, mentors take all kinds of forms. They can be informal mentorships with your colleagues. I have a ton of mentors who I also consider friends. I have formal mentors where we have a set amount of time where we meet every month and we discuss my goals and ways that I can improve. And then I have advocates. Now, advocates, you don't necessarily have to know who your advocates are, right? You usually find out who your advocates are by happenstance, but those are people who are going to speak up for you on your behalf when you're not in the room, or when they're in rooms that you have yet to enter. So one thing I remember, it was right before the new year, and I was approached to speak at our officers meeting in San Diego. And the way I was approached is, I said, well, someone gave you or your name to me, excuse me. And I said, well, who? And he says, well, don't worry about that. Just, are you interested? And I thought that was kind of odd, but I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. So I went, we had some rehearsals, and I was at one of the rehearsals, and I was talking to the head of our HR department. And I said, I'm really excited to be here. This is a great honor to be asked to come and speak. I said, I just wish I knew who gave my name. And she looked at me and she said, well, I did. And I was like, what? Because she and I didn't really know each other. I hadn't interacted with her that much, but what I came to understand in that moment is that she saw the things that I was doing in our division with my team. And she decided that I was somebody who was qualified to speak about onboarding employees and employee retention. So having a really solid work ethic, being authentic, carrying yourself with integrity appeals to people that you don't even realize. I didn't realize I was being watched. I didn't know I had been noticed. And so I was humbled in that moment because I was like, wow, thank you. And then it was like, geez, the pressure's on now. But understand that your advocates are all around you, whether you know them or not. And you don't necessarily have to seek an advocate. Your work ethic will shine through. I have colleagues that have advocates throughout our firm, and it has everything to do with the way that they have presented themselves in their work product. So think about, as you're moving throughout your company, what are you projecting? What image are you projecting? What brand are you promoting internally? And also in the industry. I know several colleagues who needed to transition from one company or another. And within 5 minutes of putting out the notice that they were interested, they got all these different leads. So it's vitally important that you recognize your brand is important. Having mentors and a network of colleagues to bounce ideas off of and get information. S&PS is an excellent place to find mentors as well as colleague mentors, I'll call them, right? I remember a few years ago, several ladies in S&PS, we were all sort of new managers. And so we had a monthly meetup where we talked through some of the challenges that we were facing. And it was obviously confidential because we wanted to be respectful to our employees, but we needed that mentorship from each other. Have you gone through this? Okay, well, this is what I'm facing right now. What do you suggest? It was extremely important. Also having informal mentors in your organization. Tanya Goring was and is a huge mentor to me. She wasn't, this is the point I'm making. It doesn't have to be somebody that's in marketing. Tanya is an HR professional, but she was extremely helpful to me in understanding how to communicate with some of the members of the staff where I worked at the time. And so don't dismiss someone as a potential mentor because they're not in the position you want to be in. Understand that that's still very valuable to your growth and to your progress. And the last piece that often is the hardest one, practice patience. One thing that I've experienced when I've brought forward ideas or I've wanted to do something and it wasn't necessarily supported is not to give up on that idea or not to give up on that goal. Change is constant. And so I can think of situations where a colleague and I put together a reorganization for our marketing teams. We wanted to figure out how to better serve our division and also provide additional opportunities for growth for our staff members. So we put together a reorganization plan that we were super excited about and ready to get going. And we had all these hopes about how great it was going to be. And then it was womp womp. No, that's not really what we're looking for right now. It was extremely disappointing. Fast forward a year and a half, that individual who was our supervisor at the time, no longer our supervisor. We both got new supervisors because our division split. Both of us have been able to implement much of what we talked about in that reorganization because we had new leadership that was actually supportive of that. So understand that just because an idea is not accepted, don't throw it away. Continue to work on it, go back, tool your idea as things change, update it, and be ready to pull it off the shelf when you do have somebody that's receptive. Also, tap into your advocates, tap into, if you know them, or tap into your mentors and your colleagues. If you get, if you get a no from your leadership, reach out to your network and say, what am I missing here? If you get a no from your leadership, ask. Now, don't be, combative, but ask to better understand, okay, what part of this is not appealing? What part of this can I improve? What would look right to you? Always ask the question. They might say no. That tells you more about them, but then you continue to ask other resources for more information and feedback and keep tooling it. And then re-examine and redefine what you want on a regular basis. Things change, our life changes, and sometimes what you wanted to begin with isn't the same. Be okay with saying, you know what, I don't want that anymore, and change direction. So a lot of this has to do with you understanding what you want, why you want it, and does it continue to be important in your space? One thing I also wanted to, I was talking to a friend who's on this call, Sherry Antella, thank you. We were talking, and one of the things that sometimes we get into this rut, right? Where we're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna keep pushing, I'm gonna keep pushing, I'm gonna keep pushing. So what came to mind was Dory, just keep swimming, right? No, don't just keep swimming, you might be going the wrong way. Think about what it is you want, re-examine if you're going in the right direction. And if you have to make a left, make a left. It's okay. I think sometimes we get so stuck on, this is the path that I want, and I want it right now. I don't care what anybody says, I'm gonna push, 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 push. And we really haven't done the work to uncover why we want it. Therefore, when we fight for it, it ends up being a little hollow. One of the first things I ask my staff, if someone comes to me and says, I want to be a manager. Okay, why? And you'd be surprised how many people that stops up short. Well, but you're coming to me saying you want to be a manager. Help me understand why. What is your why? What is it you want to do? I had one person say, well, I want to be able to tell people what to do. I said, is that what I do? I said, if I had time to do that, to tell you what to do every single day, I wouldn't be able to get my job done. So we had a whole conversation about what, management really is, and understanding that as a manager, you're the last person that you get to think about. There's a book, Leaders Eat Last, and it's so true. If you're doing the job sincerely, what you want comes last to what your team needs. So if you say you want to be a manager, do the research and understand what that looks like. Now, here's another thing for all of you to understand too. If what you want is more money, that's fine too. Don't be afraid to be honest with yourself. Sometimes that's what it's about. Sometimes you're like, I want to do some things in my life, in my personal life, and I need more money to do that. Just understand that as you move throughout the firm, usually more money, like the rap says, more money, more problems. With more money comes way more responsibility. So just be willing to understand that and embrace that and prepare yourself for it, and really ask the question, is that what I want? And one more point about advocates before I move on. Make sure your advocates are in a position to advocate for you. When advocates identify themselves, it's always a good feeling, right? To know that people are speaking up for you in rooms that you're not currently in. And that's great. Don't dismiss those individuals. But when it comes to advancement in the firm, when it comes to getting initiatives supported and implemented, make sure that you have advocates who are in a place to help you make that happen. And here are just some reminders. It's so important to take the time to make a list of what your professional and personal priorities and goals are. That's something I also just didn't do. I just kept getting on to get on, right? I was like, all right, I got a job. I'm gonna keep working. I'm just gonna do this, and I'm gonna go to the next thing, and then I'm gonna go to the next thing. One thing that I had to really stop and ask is, Erika, what do you actually want? What's important to you, both professionally and personal, and not making them company-based. Sometimes what you want is not available at the company where you are currently, and that's okay too. But if you're clear on what it is, you can work toward that even at your current company and prepare yourself for the next opportunity when it comes along. I already mentioned, don't just keep swimming. You could be going the wrong way, or you could run into a shark. Make sure you are paying attention to where you're going and why you're going that direction. I just said, make sure your advocates are positioned to advocate for you. Also, check your attitude, your outlook, and your work ethic. Again, a very dear friend of mine, I repeat this all the time. People quit, but they haven't left, right? If you've quit emotionally at your workplace, that's going to shine through. So I had to learn that as well. Make sure that if I'm having a bad day, I'm not projecting that, because those people that I talked about, those potential advocates, they're seeing that too. And so sometimes when we're upset about where we are professionally or where we are personally, if we're not careful, people pick up on that. And so we just need to make sure that we're checking ourselves on a regular basis. I said this before, if you want more money, do your research, ask HR for a salary review. It is an appropriate question. I think too, we have gotten into this place where we were afraid to talk about salary. It's just a very personal thing. It's very, okay, that's fine. But I'm going to ask my colleagues what's going on. I'm not going to ask them about how much they're spending, but hey, give me a range. What are you seeing in your firm? What are you seeing in the industry? Because that's how we all understand and we grow together. And we're able to, this is what I also learned. We're in the middle of updating our marketing descriptions at HNTB, long overdue, and reviewing them against the market. We set the market, right? So if we're not having a conversation with each other about what value we provide to our firms, we're missing an opportunity to set the market for what people get paid for in this profession. And now, ask me anything you want. Nobody? All right, well, I'm just gonna sip some water while you guys decide. Does anybody have any situation?
Hey, Erika, Cherry Ann.
Hey,
So excellent presentation.
thank you.
Wanted to ask a question, and maybe it's more of an observation rather than a question regarding the whole, you know, if you're looking for a salary adjustment and you approach HR, what I've found, and maybe it's just my particular experience, is I believe on the marketing side, sometimes we don't see HR as being an advocate for employees. They're more so advocates. They're there for the employer. So sometimes I feel that there's some hesitancy to approach HR on such a subject or a topic because, and it's no fault of HR. I just feel that over time, it has just become understood for whatever reason that that's a conversation that you do not broach with HR. So do you have any recommendations besides what was already given to say, well, if someone is in that situation, how do they realistically approach it and ask for what they want?
Yeah, I think that I've heard that from other individuals. I'm going to pose my response, and then I'm going to put somebody on the spot who's an HR professional and see if she has any thoughts on that. She's been given no warning whatsoever, so forgive me, friend. But so for me, as I think back over my career, I can identify several places where I allowed my fear and intimidation to stop me from asking a question, to stop me from pushing toward a goal. And so I ask the question, right? If they say no, I will challenge it. I'll say, well, I don't understand why isn't that information available to me? If they don't want to give me a number, a specific number, then I say, okay, well, what's the range? So I know with HNTB, there are ranges associated with each role. There's a low, mid, and high. So I don't want them to tell me what somebody else is getting paid in that role, but give me the range. If you're not getting that, then again, I think it's time to reach out to your network and ask them and just gather data that way, and also do some Google searching. I mean, yeah, have I heard about situations where HR is just absolutely not going to give that information? Sure. I don't have an answer for that specifically. I think that, if you push back and say, what's the range for the role, and they still won't give it to you, then you've got to tap into your network. Tanya, do you have anything to add on that? Or any other HR professional that's on the line today?
Hi, Erica. So I actually did just raise my hand. And what I would like to say, Sherry Ann, is that, I've been an HR professional for about 30 years, and I've always felt like I'm here to be an advocate for both the employee and both the company or organization that I'm working with. Because my ultimate goal is to attract and retain talented people. They're the biggest asset to most any organization, unless you make widgets or something like that, which in our industry, we don't tend to do that. So, but what I have said to individuals who have approached me about asking or who are uncertain about what their pay is and if they're aligned with the market, or just they're being paid what they feel like they're worth, I might not tell you, okay, like Erika said, this is what so-and-so is making, so I think you should be making that. I try to point them back to their manager and say, here are some talking points, kind of like what Erika's point. You don't want to just ask for an increase. You have to position yourself. Look, these are some things that I've learned. These are some additional skills that I've acquired. And you want to position yourself in the best place to show, I'm not just asking for this increase, but I'm worth it for you and for me. like it's mutually beneficial because I've added to my skill set, I've added value to the company. So typically what I would do is give the person talking points that they could take back and ideas on how they could approach the manager to get what they were asking for. And truly, if I thought it was someone, you know, because typically we do have access to market salaries and tools and things like that. So you can typically tell where someone is against the market. And so if it was someone who I felt like, man, this person has a long way to go, you know, I might try some coaching and just say, hey, you know, here's where I think you should be before you move forward with asking for that. But if I feel like the person's positioned in a way and doing all those things that they should be doing, and they have added value with skill set or additional knowledge and capabilities, then yes, I'm going to encourage them to have a conversation with their manager, and also to be prepared to talk to the manager when approached by the manager to say, yes, we had a conversation, and tell me what they brought to the table. How did they approach you? And hopefully those types of approaches to speaking with HR, I personally don't feel like, well, that should be a conflict. Encouraging people to talk with their manager, giving them some tools to talk to their manager. Because on the flip side of that, I'm going to be doing the same thing with the manager. Because like I said, as an HR professional, my goal is for the relationship to be mutually beneficial with the employee and the manager company. And I apologize for that long-winded answer.
No, thank you. I mean, I put you on the spot, so. Sharon, did that answer your question?
No, that was pretty good. Thanks for the information.
And I do see that we have some questions in the chat. So Katie asks, do you mind sharing an example of a professional goal you made that wasn't company-based? Absolutely. So when I was at PBS&J, and then they changed the acronyms right before I left, I knew that I wanted to manage people. And for me, it didn't matter where that was. So that was a professional goal that I really dug into and realized, all right, so if it's not going to happen here, maybe it'll happen somewhere else. So I was on a track at PBS&J toward management, and then they did a reorganization that reduced the number of management positions. And then of course, Atkins came in and there was a lot of uncertainty. And at the same time, as I mentioned, my former manager referred me to a position at Tetra Tech, which was a managerial position. So for me, it wasn't company-based. I just knew that I wanted to be able to be the manager that I wished I'd had at various points in my career. And so I got that opportunity at Tetra Tech. And what I'll also say about that is when you identify a goal, particularly a professional goal, find some mentors, because when I went to Tetra Tech, they hadn't had an active, I'll say active marketing manager at the time. So there was a VP that was sort of over marketing, but his approach to workload management was we would all be on a call and he would say, all right, this RFP just came out, who wants it? So it was an uphill battle. And again, I can't thank Tanya Goring enough because she was really instrumental in helping me and mentoring me on the best ways to communicate with my staff as well as managing up, right? Working with the other VPs in the firm and really trying to grow. And then also in the managerial space, identifying other managers in the industry and talking to them and sharing ideas and challenges that really made a difference. So whenever I come up with a goal, I look and see if it's something that's possible at HNTB. And then the other thing that's really important, and I can't believe I didn't say it until now, is people have to know what your goals are, right? One thing I realized when I became a manager was like, wait, they just don't automatically know what you want, right? Like there's something we just take for granted when we're early in our career and we're dealing, like, how do you not know that's what I want? Of course. Because, we also learn the universe does not actually revolve around us. So what I had to understand is I have to open my mouth. I have to tell them, they have to know what I want in order to be an advocate, to be a champion, to identify mentors. People have to know what you want. And it's not boasting, it's not demanding, it's just, hey, this is what I'm interested in. You'd be surprised how many people are able to advance in their careers simply by saying, this is what I want, and being prepared and understanding, okay, this is what I want, this is what I have to do to get there. Asking for that feedback. This is where I am, these are the skill sets I have, this is what I want to do. What do you see that where I'm lacking? What do I need to work on? So I hope that answers your question, Katie. I see Daniel said, thanks for all the good info. You're welcome. After you identify your advocates and champions, do you ever have concerns about confidentiality and discretion regarding the topics you discuss with them? How do you balance genuine conversation with not giving up too much information, risk, etc.? That's an excellent question. So I think it's not just jumping into, let me start with advocates. So advocates, the way I approach my advocates is, I just make sure they know what it is I want. My work speaks for itself with my advocates. If I have conversations with people that have identified themselves as advocates for me, I try to be honest and authentic, but not say things that put them in an odd position with other people in the firm, right? So I tend not to vent to my advocates. I tend to keep it very high level and focused on what my goals are. As far as my mentors are concerned, I feel like the mentorship relationship is very sacred. My mentee is on, hey, Hallie. And when I connected with Hallie, I didn't know her prior to us being connected. Her DMD, my counterpart, reached out and said, hey, would you be willing to mentor one of my staff members? I said, absolutely. And Hallie is, I'm gonna embarrass her, she is incredible. And so what I said to her DMD though, I said, look, I'm willing to do this, but I need you to understand, I'm not gonna come back and report our discussions with you. This relationship needs to be confidential. She needs to be able to trust me so that she can be honest about what she's frustrated about, what she's dealing with. And what I told the DMDs, I said, now I will do my very best when it comes to situations where maybe she's frustrated with leadership. I'm going to encourage her to go back and talk to you guys or whoever her manager is. And that's what we have done in certain situations, but I'm not going to betray her trust. And so I communicated the same thing to Hallie. And so Hallie had to take a leap. Hallie had to trust me. And I think she has, because she's been pretty candid with me and we've been able to work through some, and it's awesome. I think it's beneficial for me too, because I get to be candid with her as well. And I get to provide her perspective that I wish somebody had given me when I was at the same place in my career. Because there's just a lot of perspective that we lack, right? About our management and why they're making certain decisions and what's motivating certain things. Not to say that you have to like it once you get the perspective, but at least you have it, right? As opposed to just being in the dark. So it really does, Daniel, to your point, when you're starting a mentor relationship, it's going to take time. You have to build the trust. I'm not expecting, I didn't expect Hallie to spill her guts the first time we had a conversation, or the second or third, quite frankly. We had to build up a level of trust with each other. And like I said, with my advocates, I don't tend to share certain things with them. I just keep it focused on the work that I'm doing. Valerie said, that's an interesting question, especially for those of us who have been in the SNPS mentorship program in the chapter. I've often wondered about some of the topics that are discussed, although there is an element of confidentiality within the SNPS mentor program. Yeah, I agree. I think, again, it's about integrity and it's about how do you want to be viewed. And I think what people need to take away from that question and this is that this is a very small industry. And if you don't keep people's confidentiality, it tells more about you than it does about them, right? So I think it's important to take that to heart and keep that in mind, because we have short memories, but long-term relationships. All right. Any other questions for me? Is there something that you want me to expand on?
Erika,
I tried to. Go ahead.
So you mentioned that one of your professional goals was to manage people. And I was wondering, for those of us who maybe haven't yet been in a management position, if you could speak more to about kind of like how you figured that out, or, you know, any advice that you have for those who are interested but haven't actually had that ability. And so they're curious if it's something that they would enjoy.
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, let me just say both of my parents were in management, so maybe I have a little bit of a cheat there. They were both workaholics and they managed people. So I got to see a lot of what they did firsthand and how they interacted with their employees. That being said, it didn't deter me. But ultimately what I found is when working with my colleagues, I really liked the collaboration. I liked helping them figure things out. I liked being solution oriented, right? So when I was learning, when I got to PBS&J, we all started using InDesign at the same time. So we had like a 2-day training, and then they were like, there you go, do your proposals in InDesign. So we're all trying to figure it out together. And so I spent a lot of time really trying to understand how to be efficient in InDesign. So then my coworkers started coming to me, asking me for help. And I really got a lot of satisfaction in helping them progress, helping them expand their skill set. And so over time, they started coming to me for other things. And what I realized is I got a lot of professional satisfaction in helping them. So that's when I decided that, and like most of us, I'm sure, and probably some of my employees too, and I don't hate on them for this, we all think we know better than our managers, right? We always go, why did they make that decision? That's dumb. That doesn't make sense, blah, 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 right? So part of also what motivated me was there were some things that I didn't quite understand. And I felt like there were different ways to do things. And so it became a goal of mine to do things differently and to be a different type of manager. Obviously, with time and wisdom, I've come to know that everything that I thought was stupid was not. Everything that I didn't agree with just had to be done. But again, that had everything to do with having mentors and people who were willing to talk to me and communicate with me. So for me, it was sort of this is where I feel a lot of professional satisfaction. Now, again, I had to learn over time that it's not always that fun part, right? It's not always that worked out really great. This person is flourishing. You also have to deal with people and the stuff that they're dealing with in their home life that bleeds into the workplace sometimes. And there's some really hard situations that you have to face. So I really had to tap into my mentors to help me work through some of those things, because that can absolutely be very taxing. And it feels, it can be a little scary from the standpoint of you don't want to hurt people, right? You want to be able to be that motivating force. You want to be able to empower people, but also be respectful of the things that they're dealing with. So again, that came back to research, understanding that all that glitters is not gold. It's not always going to be sunshine and roses, but understanding that the professional satisfaction that I get from the time when it is glitter, when it is gold, when it is sunshine, it outweighs the tough part. So if you're looking for trying to uncover whether or not you want to be in a managerial space, I encourage you actually to get involved in professional organizations, get involved in the board, because in board positions, we have to motivate each other. We have to manage tasks. We have to manage programs, events, et cetera. And that really gives you an opportunity to stretch that muscle around motivating people, being strategic, right? As a manager, I have to constantly look at our staffing levels. Are we staffed to support the goals of our division? Do we have the right skill sets? Do we have the right resources? And so professional organizations and board membership or board participation, is a great place to do that without and forgive me, S&PS Central Florida, I'm not saying that it's not critical to be excellent, but there's not as much at stake as there would be in your job, if that makes sense. Because you have people around you that are committed to helping you learn. And sometimes in your professional space, in our companies, you make a mistake and people never forget it. So at S&PS, I think it's a safe space to learn and grow in that area.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Oh, and then also I was going to add, again, your network is a great place to get a broad idea, because I promise you, I'm sure there's I know there are many managers on this call. They all have a very different experience. Don't be afraid to tap into your network and ask them what their experiences are to get a broad view of what some of the things are that you deal with as a manager, so that you go in with your eyes wide open. And let me also just say this: it's okay not to want to manage people. It is absolutely acceptable. There are so many other ways where you can add value in your firms. And I encourage you all to explore that as well, because it is, either way, it's a journey, and it needs to be something that you're going to be fulfilled with. And I know I have some employees that are like, oh, please, no, I'm not trying to manage anybody. But they're amazing at managing a pursuit team, right? So keep that in mind. Let me see, is there other
in the chat? So Stacy Ho asks, can you give more examples of managing up, tips you have to overcome blocking managers? Maybe they don't support you, your development, your workload balance, or don't give you feedback. They don't reach out and are not very available. Or in this case, the manager has over 15 direct reports.
Whew. Yes. So let me start with, let me break that down. Hold on, because I want to make sure I address each one. Just trying to pull it up again. Sorry. There we go. All right. Managing up. Again, uncovering what's important to them. For example, one of the things I learned at HNTB is we have our division sales officer, which is basically the person that's in charge of making sure that we hit our sales goal. So ask questions, right? Just like when we talk about getting discovery from clients, ask those individuals in your upline what's important to them. It feels awkward at first if you don't have a relationship with them, but work on building a relationship with them and just letting them know, can I have 15 minutes of your time? I have some questions. I want to make sure that I'm positioned to add value and to help us accomplish our goal. What's important to you? What's the one thing that, keeps you awake at night? Ask questions to uncover what's important to them. And then as you build that relationship with them, it leaves the door open for you to talk about what's important to you and some of the challenges that you're facing. Now, I've had blocking managers before. I mean, I've had a manager who was actively working against me and I didn't realize this at first. A whole lot more to that story, but at any rate, I stayed the course. I didn't, as devastating as that was, personally, I didn't let that stop me from doing what I know was the right thing. And again, I tapped into my mentors to come up with ideas on how to work around certain things. So as far as the lack of support for your development, do it off hours is what I guess I'm trying to say. Figure out a way. For example, I know there are some firms that don't support participation with S&PS. Reach out to people in this network, talk to members of the board, and if you can save money and pay for the membership yourself, there will be a way for you to participate, and it doesn't necessarily have to be during work hours, so that you will still be able to get the benefit of participation in S&PS, whether or not your boss is supportive. I wish I had done that, because when I was at PPS&J, I didn't have leadership that was supportive of membership at the time with S&PS. And so I dismissed it. I didn't even think about the fact that, hey, I can save some money and pay for membership myself. It didn't even cross my mind. But I would have gotten the benefit of membership long before that. Workload balance. Whew. Man, oh man. So I don't know if you're in a situation where it's just you, like you're, one woman team, but talk to your coworkers and figure out how you all can support one another. On my team right now, we definitely are in a crunch with workload, but what we do is we shift as needed to support whoever has the immediate need. If you are on your own, figure out how to prioritize what's critical first. And if they're not supportive of your workload, I think you have to have a conversation, right? If you are finding that you are burned out, if you're finding that you can't see straight because there's too much going on, you have to be honest with them. And that's scary. It is absolutely scary because you're thinking, oh my gosh, are they gonna let me go? But it is what it is, right? There's a point at which you hit a wall and you can't do anymore. And so I encourage you to reach out to me, send me a DM. We can talk more in depth, because I don't want to ask you questions right now that you probably are not willing to answer in front of this whole crowd. But I want to help you in that regard, because that's hard, especially when they don't understand and they're not receptive to your ideas. So another thing I'll go back to is when it comes to workload balance, do some research, ask some questions. We just actually reached out to an industry resource because even though my team we have, I think, 14 people, we needed more help. And so we were able to get somebody to come in as a contractor. Now, I know that may not be your situation, but I'd love to talk to you a little bit more and try to maybe come up with some ideas to help. And as far as somebody having 15 direct reports, that is extremely hard. We actually just did a reorganization in my group because we realized that the marketing manager had way too many direct reports. You just can't give the attention that's needed to everyone in that case. So in that situation, you got to be the squeaky wheel. You gotta be loud with your manager, because you can easily get overlooked and missed. So send me a message on LinkedIn or email me. I think my email was in the registration. If not, it's ebooker@HNTB. I would love to talk to you some more, Stacy. How do you keep your emotions in check when having those difficult conversations? Lots of practice. I think that what I also take to heart, and I've learned this from working with our pursuit teams, is the first time that you lose control of your emotions, your message is gone. Forget it. Because it's only going to become about you and how emotional you got, or the fact that you were upset, or that you got loud, or whatever the case may be. Taking your time, taking a breath, understanding that if you are having a difficult conversation with your management or HR, you have every right to just sit back, be quiet, listen to what they're saying, take some deep breaths. You don't have to respond right away. If they finish speaking and they look at you, you just look back and give yourself a minute to compose yourself before you answer. It is not something that has happened to me often in terms of me losing my cool, but I have definitely been in situations where the conversation has been shocking to the point of me saying, you know what, I'm just gonna come back. Let's regroup. And so I will step away too. Because like I said, I have found that when you do lose your cool, when you do lose your patience, when you do become emotional, it becomes about that. And they don't even hear what you're saying anymore. So don't be afraid to just walk away, to step away, communicate, right? Don't just walk out and leave them sitting there, but just say, you know what? I hear what you're saying. Let me go back and think on this some more, and I'd like to regroup and have another conversation later. I hope that answered your question, Ivania. If you want me to expand, please. Thank you, Robin. Yeah. Okay, was I given, or is that to, oh, that was Sherry Ann to Robin. You guys are chatting. I love that you're chatting with each other. You guys check out the chat, asking each other questions. Robin, you wanted for me to talk more on managing up. You want more examples of what that looks like? Are you on mute, or are you responding in the chat? Sorry. I know we've got just a couple more minutes. So this will be the last question I take. Okay. So an example of managing up.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll give you an example. Okay, this morning I was on a call with our regional sales officer, excuse me. we are putting together a virtual summit for the 3 divisions in our East region. That was a mouthful. And it's for our marketing staff. So for him, what I realized is he's supportive. He's our champion for this effort. But what I realized is I have to make sure that what we're putting together is something that he is going to want to champion, right? So managing up in that situation looks like, okay, Doug, this is the agenda that we came up with. Here's where this is in alignment with the corporate goals. This is what's in alignment. These are in alignment with our Eastern region goals. And so managing up looks like creating a win-win for them. It also looks like communicating what's going on and informing them in real time about things they need to know about so that they can make an informed decision. Managing up also looks like me saying to Doug, hey, we're gonna bring in some additional resources for this virtual summit so that we can create a best practice across the firm. So for Doug, that's a win-win for him. In that he can then go and say, look at this thing we put together. I champion this, aren't I great? Not that that's how he promotes it, but. All right, so the firm sees SNPS as a personal development rather than a professional resource. It will be a long road in showing them through. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was asked, you know, why my firm happened, and my firm happens to be, they're not an engineering firm, and when they brought me on, they didn't even know what a marketing coordinator was. So it's been, you know, right. So it's just that slow educational thing. And so when I attend things like this, or like I'm working with the mentor program, you know, I say, well, this is what I learned through this when I'm talking to the principals and CEOs, you know, to let them know, well, I'm bringing this from this resource.
Right.
And it's a resource I pay for, by the way, you know, that kind of but that's, yeah, it's just like a slow road.
Yeah, I know when I first started with SNPS, and I'm sure there still are, Barbie I know I'm putting you on the spot, so sorry, Barbie. And I think there's still resources out there about how to communicate the value of SNPS to your leadership. But one of the things that I will always say and champion with SNPS is that SNPS gave me access to professional development that I would not have had otherwise. And those are things that I'm bringing back to my current firm, right? That's the value that my firm is getting. The resources that I have access to through SNPS, the mentorship that I have access to through SNPS helps HNTB ultimately, helps any firm that I go to. And it's really a nominal fee, right? When you think about, for those firms that do reimburse for membership, they're paying very little for a ton of professional development and mentoring that you get from the organization. So I don't know that there are still resources. There used to be resources on snps.org, and I can check it out, Robin, if that would help you as well. But I think just reminding your leadership on a regular basis that, hey, I'm bringing back value. Barbie, I think you're off mute.
I am. Yes, there are resources on snps.org about the value of membership and the benefits of membership and what you can take back to your firm. So you can use those. But I will also say that, you know, for a firm, you can use the professional development bent to show the value. But I think for most engineering firms, it's about what client information are you bringing back. So I used to, whenever we had a client program, I would type up all of my notes and I would send them out to all of the management in my firm saying, this is what I learned today at SNPS. So when you can come back and show, I talked to this client, I went about this program, and you start bringing back that information that also can help them with their bottom line, they're much more receptive to paying them.
Love it.
Yeah, and if I can add just a little bit to what Barbie said, you know, access, you know, there's a ton of access that we get as marketing professionals to others, you know, just that whole networking that we do. I think sometimes leadership, not all leadership, but sometimes leadership tend to think that SMPS or these networking situations for marketing folks is just, getting together and chatting about marketing. It's so much more than that. Access to other, not only on the client side, but your competitors, firms, I don't want to turn this into a grabbing resources conversation, but other firms use affiliations such as SMPS to see talent that's available out there and try to get talent. And so if you're closed off from that access, then I feel that your firm, by not supporting you, is doing a disservice to you and them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Sherry Ann. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Danielle. I know we're over time, but thank you guys so much for your participation. I hope that what I shared was helpful. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me, ebooker@hntb.com. I'm more than happy to give you some advice on anything that you're dealing with, at least as much as I can based on my experience.
Thank you, Erika.
Thanks,
Like I
Erika.
mentioned briefly at the beginning, we so appreciate your time today, and we are going to make that donation to the charity of your choice. So please send that information over to me when you get a chance.
Thank you.
For everyone else, thank you so much for attending this program. And, we hope to see you at our education programs coming up in April and in May. So please, take a look at the website, or if you're getting our newsletter, those are advertised there every Friday. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.